Today, the Guyana Chronicle Stories is at the Wales Estate, where we will be talking with Mr. Charles Browne, the officer in charge of the estate. Good morning, Mr. Browne.
Good morning.
How are you? So, this story is in regard to the Ministry of Agriculture's plan to reopen the sugar estates across Guyana. We want to go back a little bit into the time of when the Wales estate was in all of its glory and production was flowing well. So, can you give us a little walkthrough of that?
Yes, well, permit me to introduce myself again, Mr. Charles Wayne Browne, full name. Wales Estate being the first estate I worked at. In fact, the vast majority of my working life is with Gaisuku. And ironically, this is the estate which I started at in 1984. Actually, I intended to become a field foreman, which called for 5 subjects at the time, 3 science, maths, and English, which I came with, but there weren't any vacancies. But I decided to stay as a clerk until the chance came. I did eventually get to become what I wanted to be. I got 2 scholarships, Guyana School of Agriculture, University of Guyana, both Gaisuku scholarships, and became an agronomist by training. So my training is really, I'm an agronomist. But after a couple of years of that, I moved through to management and worked my way up to crop production manager up until when Wales was closed. But Wales in its glory days, there are many, many parameters you can use to deal with production. And I may not have all the numbers on hand at the moment, but I can tell you they were incentives used to be paid according to production. And Wales was way there in the top with days pay, weekly production incentive in a particular crop. They may be 20 weeks in the second half and 15 weeks in the first half, and Wales would manage about at least 90% of the time to surpass targets. It was extremely productive by comparison to its sister estate, Iflot. And as time went by, the soils started to, what may I say, became somewhat depleted. It comes from years of monocropping. And the thing dipped a little, production dipped a little. Some of the problem had to do with we had to change some cane varieties at the time. When you realize certain varieties do better on certain soil types. Well, that's my agronomy background really, because we used to do a lot of that to try to maximize your yield. Part of it also was the factory. The way the factory used to extract was also very good. 10, 11 tons cane to make a ton of sugar, right? Wales could have been compared to, even though when I was a clerk, compared to the Borbis estates, which were the most productive estates at the time. Sadly though, as the years went by, production started to decline. Part of it had to do with the labor force. Less and less persons wanted to do manual labor. Less and less persons. You find you can still get a good turnout of mechanics. The artisans would be there, all the clerks, staff, but the real trench work comes from the field, and it started to decline. It's still more or less the same with the what remains of Gaisuku. You need a certain amount of people on your payroll, and at best, in crop time, you might get 68% turnout. And eventually, things like that, right across the industry, also coupled with falling sugar prices, it was becoming a less profitable venture, and people started to leave by and by. But, it went along with help, government help, went along for a while. And sadly, Wales was closed eventually in 2016, right? Sadly, too, I was severed, like other sugar workers. But NISIL decided to keep me there after 3 months being at home because of my unique knowledge of Wales and also my unique knowledge of the Wales people. I just don't know the estate only, I also know the people. Which, it's kind of like half of the battle, right? You know how to deal with them. Right? So we are where we are at the moment with the idea of a reopening, but I would also want to venture down to tell you what is currently happening in the interim from the closure in 2016 to now. Some lands were leased to small, medium, large investors. The small investors I may start first with is the people in Belize, the same Farmers Advancement Network. A part of that, half of that area, it is 343 acres. But around half of it, Gaisuko wasn't planting for around 50 years because it's considered marginal soils. When it went over to Nissel, I went into the area and had a look and find that people were in there basically squatting, but they were eking out a living for quite a few years. And a decision was made to regularize those people. And I spent considerable time among them. And there were lots of changes. People were interested and some were not interested, but eventually we settled to something. And those people have taken up that thing now as a form of living. It's their lifeblood, it's their livelihood. And it's land really deemed to be marginal land. You know, you put canes on it, the cane's supposed to last 5 years. By the time 3 years, you got to plow it out and plant again. And you got to use quite a lot of limestone to neutralize the soil because the soil is acid there. But the people did their own soil amelioration with cow mole and their own local stuff to make their crops grow. So that area now produces quite a lot of cash crops that finds its way all over. But the thing is, they were squatting at the time. But now they have been regularized. Coming out of that is the main small area that has 75 people, right? The main small farmers groupings. A few of them got a whole field, but most of them fields got at least 4 persons in it. And you know, they got groups, they infight at times. So I play a pivotal role in keeping peace in the area. They have a meeting on Saturday. Every Saturday I am present there. And they got disputes, I settle the disputes right there. You know, sometimes they just want to see somebody in authority and thing goes okay. Right? Now, moving out to the other parts of the estate, we ourselves here are doing some rice. It had initially started out as seed paddy, which is somewhat lucrative. Point is though, to make that paddy that you're planting seed paddy involves some additional costs that a small rice farmer cannot bear, you know, unless he is subsidized, right? So what we do, we produce some seed, which we use ourselves, and some we sell to local farmers, and the rest goes as grain. The project began in the second half of 2017 with around 200 acres. We were new to the thing then. We had to convert land from cane beds to rice beds. We had to move a lot of soil. The resulting crop, we had some problems because of too much soil movement. So we had to modify and split fields in half and thirds and stuff like that, rather than move the soil from that end to this end. You level this particular area that ain't got too much movement. You pull well, people say mere, but it's really a berm. And that part becomes another part of the field, and this lower part is the next part of the field. So we minimize soil movements. And the crop has been growing from strength to strength. We have faced some challenges. We had a disease challenge last crop. Sometimes we get problems with prices. Sometimes we get problems with our machinery. So the more you do the work with your own machinery, it's cheaper. If you have to contract it out, it's more expensive. First, we contracted out the entire thing. At this point in time, we do all the dry land work, and we use a contractor to do the water work. We've been doing some of the water work ourselves, and it's hoped that eventually we'll be able to do all. But we will need a few more machines if that project continues. We are currently at 510. We started with 200, and we are now 510.8 acres, with some more land still set aside for further expansion. Yes, I said we had some mixed fortunes, but last crop we managed to turn a profit. We managed to buy our own combine too. Right? We used to hire combines, and we have our own combine. And I can tell you the last crop, when we compared the cost per bag, probably about 40% savings you had if you had hired a combine from someone. And as I said yesterday, our crop started again. We got a variety that matures in 90 days instead of 110. Some of it is matured. So we start to harvest yesterday. We may go for a week. Then we got to wait for another 2 weeks and then continue until the end of the crop. Currently, the estate, as it is here, it has 64 employees directly who get paid through the initial payroll, direct. And then we have 19 indirect, which are really contractors. The same land preparation contractor, it's one. We got another contractor who does husbandry work for us. It's another. The combine operator is also a contractor. When the crop is finished, he would repair and surface, and we would park, and when the next crop comes, he comes again. You know, he doesn't be around there and has to be paid all the time. So, as I said, I gave you an update as to where that rice crop is now, right? And this crop, it will be better. We've managed to do some other works. We still had challenges with some of the fields that in rice fields normally don't carry a center 4 foot. Most of the fields carry something in center 4 foot that just drain the field. We had a challenge and we managed to full up most of them. They still got some more to do. Normally the part where the 4 foot runs, the rice doesn't really grow there, so you lose that piece of acreage. So one of the blocks we already filled up the 4 foot, and we're doing some in this crop too. But the project is growing from strength to strength. It brings in a source of income. At least if it spends $1, you get back that dollar. And I think a project like that should continue. That's what I feel, right? Sadly, again, as I said, though, the estate was closed, people were severed. I'm very glad if people can get back work in the location with whatever is going on. What I would like of the people, though, is that this old runaround that you have with worker versus management, I would like the manager to do his work. I would also like the worker to do his work. What I would like particularly from the workers, regularity. Some of them are known to come very late. Punctuality, right? Punctuality, they're late. Regularity, sometimes they get paid this week and they come back to work next week, Wednesday. We're still having the problems here, right? It's an offshoot from the old days, and you know, grappling with it all the time. And then there's still the problem of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, right? Whatever becomes of the entity at Wales and elsewhere, a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. But I'm in favor of people going back to work and people getting to work. All were affected, including myself, right? But when they go to work, a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. If there's 5 days work available for them, there's some operations require 7 certain times of the year. And you need that support at the time, and you might get problems that probably half of the workers ain't gonna work 7 days during the time. And it throws your program back, right? So a couple of things need to be gone back to where the drawing board is concerned, that the employees that stand to benefit from this reopening also have to give a certain commitment to make whatever goes on success, or at least breaks even, right? As far as it can go, but that is my take on the matter. That a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, regularity, punctuality. And I don't think we would have, you know, this massive problem that it is normally be getting with finances and stuff like that. We will be able to go far away on our own. We may still need some help, that is agreed based on the world scenario with sugar. But there's a certain amount of things that we can do. I did mention earlier to well, the people that we employ around here are really workshops. The workshop people, mechanics, 2 of them, 1 or 2 electrician, we have 1 welder, we have 5 tractor operators. Mostly rice work they will do. Occasionally we do dam maintenance, and we may do some private work. People may call to do some private work, but we don't put the private work in front of us. In the off season, we would do some private work. These same farmers in the Farmers Advancement Network, most of them are poor people, and they cannot afford to a machine, so to speak. So I've been occasionally sending in machines to help them at an affordable cost. And when I say affordable cost, it's something that they can afford, and we are also not shortchanged in the thing. So when we finish with them, we are able to cover any fuel that we use, any lube oil, any spares, mechanic wages, operator wages. We recover that from them. And we're giving them a boost. As I said, they're poor people. And they cannot afford the machine that other private man would want. To tell them, most of them can't manage it. So I've been helping them, and I did commit myself to a meeting they had about 2 months ago to continue to help them. They may mention it when they get here. Right?
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about the Farmers Advanced Market. When was it first birthed, and can you say how many farmers are a part of this program?
Yeah, I did mention earlier the Belize area is known as Belize Field 2 to Field 44. It runs in even numbers, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, straight down to 44. From Field 2 to 26 was not being planted, at least since I came on, which is probably 35 years. I understand it was before that from some of the older guys in there. The other part we used to plant, but most time you'll get nothing much out of it. There's some crops you just don't plant it. You can plant it and sometime 2 years later you got to get rid of it again instead of 5, as I was mentioning. The Farmers Advancement Network, let me say about a year ago, in fact since 2012, some of the members tell me they were trying to get legalized on some of those lands. When the estate became privatized, but not really privatized, when it became, went over to NISIL, it was vested over to NISIL. We had to take, all these lands fell into it. Although like the 2 to 26 part never used to be planted, it still belongs to Gaisuku. And as I said, people were there. I went into the area to have a look after land. Leases were given out. This particular had some people went and squat, even on the part that we used to plant. But that's what really made me go there after. And most of those fighting each other there were ex-Gaisuku. They were severed, some went on pension and things. So some of them weren't around to be severed. But they were there and they had a lot of infighting. And I went there to sort the matter out. And then I reported to my superiors that, look, there are some people squatting there. The lands are considered marginal. And it was decided that 2 years ago that we try to regularize those people. So you have to go there and walk the length and breadth of the place. Some of the people I don't know, most I know, and manage to bring some sort of order to them. And with advice from myself and other people, we told them as a farming group. Matter of fact, they used to get cow, goat, sheep, then crops, and they used to get a lot of problem with the animals destroying the crops. So we managed to partition the place. We managed to dig a canal, and the cattle and livestock are on one side, the crops are on the other side. They've decided, let me say a year ago, to farm the society, less than a year ago. Rather than work as individuals, they decide to farm, try to be a society or a group. They have a functioning committee too. Right? And that is how the Farmers Advancement Network came into being as a grouping. They were also advised now to register this thing, which they are in the process of doing. But I have learned from them yesterday, at least one of the principals of the group, that they went to get it registered, they were partially successful, and somebody from the ministry will be there today to give them some further directives. And they have asked that I be a part of that at 11:30 today. And as we speak, the Farmers Advancement Network is already generating produce that goes on the market. And they are going full swing into it, but they just need a little bit more help, particularly from NDIA. Mr. London, who was my, well, not my immediate boss, but he used to contact him regularly about the help that the people needs. And some commitment was given that an excavator will have to go back there to help fix their drainage boxes. Each field has a drainage box. And some of them have collapsed because it's made of wood. Most of the farmers managed to either get pipes or purchase PVC tubes. And they were just like this excavator to put it down for them. It's just about 4 or 5, or about 6 of them. Right? That's the work that is currently outstanding. The other part of it is that the Wales Estate Management has decided, well, it's a general thing that we will try to maintain the dams around that area, the drainage and the irrigation. We did some drainage work and we did some irrigation work recently. But as I said, the internal drainage in the field got some problems, which we're supposed to go back and help. The excavator that NDIA has here is doing something in the rice area at the moment. As soon as it's finished, we will try to get it to go back and help them. right? So you, a bit later you'll be seeing some of the people from the Farmers Advancement Network